Always works out that our last day at spring training tends to be the busiest, which is great. We already talked to Brett Sullivan, who was fantastic. And you can guess who our next guest is by the fact that we all hurriedly threw away our corporate coffee cups before we got here.
We did.
I went to the local donut shop, and if you want a donut, Joe, you can have one. They weren't brewing the coffee yet because I got there so early it wasn't ready, so we had to go somewhere else. But
I'm guilty, too. I rolled in with a Starbucks.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I don't feel so bad.
I
won't spill. You know who that is. It's Joe Musgrove with us here on 97.3 The Fan. Joe, how's the spring been going for you so far?
It's been good, man. I mean, I've been getting roughed up a little bit out there my first two.
I was going to bring it up.
Physically, I feel pretty good. This is kind of – you never hope for this in spring training, but if it's going to happen, you hope it happens here, I guess. So
I saw 1, 2, 3 inning. That's all I saw.
Yeah, I mean, I finished with a good inning, my last one out, so I do feel a little better about that. But that's kind of what we're here for. I'm trying a few different things pitch-wise, a few different shapes on some things, but – a little trial and error period, and syncing up the delivery. So, I was out of the last month and a half, 2 months of the season. So it has been quite some time since I've been back in competition and getting the jitters out, shaking everything out. Yeah. And I'm feeling really good though.
Does it? I mean, it's got to. I mean, I'm working on this. I'm working on that. You don't like getting ahead of guys and then walking guys. I mean, no pitcher does at any level, any league. Did you get frustrated after those two starts?
Yeah, and that's like you said. I'm in good spots. I'm a few pitches away from those outings looking very differently.
Way different.
And the positive thing is I am controlling the counts. I'm getting into good situations. I just haven't figured out the lanes and the tunnels for those execution, like on put away pitches and stuff.
Sure.
So that's a piece. The breaking ball location and execution is kind of one of the last pieces to come along for me in spring. So, I do expect something like this to happen early on. Some years you come in and things are just dialed in and you're, right at it from the gate. But yeah, a little bit slower progression this year, but I do feel good and I do like where my stuff's heading.
We've talked to a few pitchers since we've been here, both on the air, off the air, Michael King yesterday, and they all brought up Joe's pitching camp.
Yeah.
Before spring training started. Tell us what you can about that, just getting the guys together a little bit early, knowing it was going to be an accelerated spring this year.
Yeah. This is something that I feel like is very impactful, not only for the players, but it helps the coaching staff out a lot. When you get Ruben and Fritz out there, give them a chance to have a week with these guys, see the kind of stuff that they have, especially with all the new guys we got coming in. Give them a chance to get at the Point Loma Bio Lab and get on the machines and kind of see how everything's working so that when we show up a week and a half later to spring, there's, been a week and a half of work gone into what we can do to perfect the delivery or to sharpen up the breaking ball or, to be a little more consistent with movements. And it's just giving them a better plan throughout spring training. But on the players' side, I think the biggest thing to get these guys, especially the young guys, comfortable in the clubhouse is get them around the guys early, let them know what the expectations are, how the standards, work here and what's expected of them so that when they show up to camp, they already got a few, familiar faces and they can kind of jump right into things. So
we've talked to so many guys. We're talking to Joe Musgrove. We talked to so many guys. I can't remember who said it. It might've been Scan. It might've been Schulte. I can't remember, but talking about working on a new pitch at spring training and how, number one, difficult it can be. And two, how hard it is to trust it, and I know you're working on maybe more of a sweep or two. Your slider's so nasty, but you've been in the league a while and guys got good tape on you and having the ability to come in, work on a new pitch, try to execute that pitch. How difficult is it at this level?
It's difficult. I think you have to come in with the right mindset and an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish, like the first few outings in spring, that is your time. If there's something you want to work on, do it now. Because, the further we get on into spring and as the season starts to get closer, there's less and less time to worry about that. You got to start focusing on getting outs and working out of situations and really trying to limit the runs in any way possible. So the first couple outings is your chance to kind of work on those things. So that's what we've tried to do. But the work between starts is the most important. That's where things really get better. In the game, you're going out there just competing, trying to get out. So, you're not thinking too much about that.
I always think about Blake Snell and how nasty his pitches were or whatever. But I also think about how he wouldn't have confidence in a really good pitch in his arsenal in 3 games in a row in the middle of the season. That's always fascinated me. For you, is your goal to work so hard and get it all dialed in spring training that you never have that lack of confidence in any of your pitches for all of your starts that year? Does that ever happen?
No, you start throwing more pitches so you got more options. That's why I got 6 pitches now.
You can put it in timeout.
Yeah, for real. From start to start, like some pitches, just aren't there, and you go through a stretch where it feels like you don't even know how to throw it anymore.
Yeah.
And sometimes just stepping away from it for a bit gives you like a fresh feeling when you get back into it. So, but also there's like tons of mental games that go with these guys. Like every big league player has a different way of approaching things, and sometimes you got to lie to yourself and pretend like it's not a big deal and like it's going to come around, but you don't want to stress it too much and overthink it and put yourself deeper into that hole. So
make you crazy after a while.
Yeah, so I think Blake might just be one of those guys where it's like, hey, if this isn't working, like I'm not going to panic. I got other weapons I can use. I'm just going to continue my process and know that it's going to come around eventually. So
from what we've seen, there are a lot of really good arms here. Some of the new guys have been very impressive, but there's also a lot of innings to replace from the guys you lost, like Waka and Lugo and Martinez and Snell. How do you think that's going to work out during the season? I mean, obviously it takes a team effort, but what are you kind of seeing so far in spring?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a few options, for long relief out of the bullpen, guys that can help cover some of those innings. But ultimately, it's going to come down to health. We got to do our best to stay healthy this year. Like you said, the experience and, I guess the experience in going 880 plus innings in the course of a season, making 32 starts. We don't have a ton of that in our rotation, but the quality is very, very high. And, I'm sure they've talked about how they want to do it, whether it's working in a 10-day break or skipping a start here and there to kind of keep guys fresh throughout the year. We got, the options of guys to come up and fill in for a spot start. But for us, it's really maintaining the routine and keeping on top of our health, and then kind of letting the coaching staff and then Skipper decide how we manage the innings throughout the year.
Talking to Joe Musgrove here on Ben and Woods this morning, and there's constant change in every camp every single year. Like you said, you've added a lot of new faces, but you've also got familiar faces playing different positions. I know that's got to be difficult for Xander Bogaerts. It was probably last year for Jake, but they're athletes. They're going to be fine, I think, just putting in the work, getting there. But how difficult will that be for them?
Yeah, I think just the responsibilities alone. The job's a lot different at shortstop than second base, and you'd think it's as easy as like everything you do on the left side of the field, you're just doing the same on the right side, but the responsibilities are very different. Knowing the guys that you have around you and what your range is like and how much ground you need to try to cover, learning the new shifts. There's a lot that goes into it. And for a guy to show up in camp like Bogey with the experience that he has and the time and the accolades that he has, and, on the drop of a hat, switch positions, it's, it says a lot about who he is as a person, and it really sets a tone for our organization and what we expect of guys here. We're here to win games, and, whatever you got to do to make that happen. I think Bogey showed that, we're going to do that.
Last thing for me, Joe, and obviously Schulte hasn't said anything official, and anything can change between now and then, but we can do the math, kind of how things line up. Mm-hmm. What would it mean to get an opening day start for the Padres?
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. I had an opening day start in Pittsburgh. My first one happened during a COVID season, so I threw with a total of 0 fans in the stands, which was a whole lot of fun.
Super energetic.
Yeah, not as exciting as a backfield spring training game, but and then I had an opportunity of what I thought I might get last year, and I break the toe and kind of shoot myself in the foot there. So, I work super hard to be recognized for things like that, but by no means is that like a goal of mine every year. I want to come in and be as good as I can every year. And if that's the first guy or the fifth guy in the rotation, I say it all the time, it doesn't matter what day you are after that first time around, whenever you get the ball, you're the ace, and that's all that matters. So, it'd be nice to be recognized as that, but it's not a goal of mine. It's kind of just whatever is best for the team, honestly.
And the Korea trip is going to be an interesting one. You guys are flying out, next Thursday, I think.
Yeah, it's coming up, man, quick.
Coming up quick, long flight. You got to get acclimated. It's going to be a lot different than the WBC, certainly for some of the guys that went to that. But how do you foresee this next couple of weeks going for you?
Just really trying to get ourselves to where we need to be innings wise, so that we can go out there and put together a decent performance. Get our at least 5 innings in and try to cover somewhat of a normal start. But a lot of it's going to be the recovery and rest type stuff, with the time change and the long flight, managing the workload the last day or two here before you get on a flight for, 15 plus hours. It's a lot of unknowns for us. We've never been over there. I've never experienced a flight this long or traveled on this far of a time difference. So, I feel like a lot of times you don't even notice it, or you act like it doesn't matter, and it catches up with you on the back end. So I'm sure it'll be a little tough coming back to San Diego than getting out there, but it's exciting when you get out there too. There's a lot of stuff to keep you busy. So
sure.
I'm not gonna make excuses. I'm just gonna go out there and I'm gonna do whatever I got to do.
I love
Those
it, man.
Trans-Pacific planes are big. Maybe instead of a mound kind of in the
Yeah,
back,
yeah,
get a
get
little
some
work
flat
side
grounds
work.
going.
you just
Yeah,
get some work in on the way over.
side work.
Joe, really appreciate it. Looking forward to the season as always. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, pleasure seeing you
Appreciate
guys.
it, man.
Joe Musgrove
The
with us
Drake,
here.
Joe Musgrove.
What a start to the show.